Hello.
Okay.
Hello there.
I don't know.
We're back.
We're back.
Hey.
Okay. That recorder's back on.
Oops.
Oh, should I restart the recording? I guess probably, because otherwise
No.
it'll be too large of a file and it won't send a. Yeah, I'm going
Okay.
to.
Well, then you can send both then.
Okay.
Or whatever.
Are we? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have the chat room up with the new.
Everyone says it sounds much better.
Good. Not more. No softness and no muffliness.
No. You're back to normal. Absolutely normal.
Excellent. Wonderful. I don't know what was going on. I just disconnected, reconnected, and something worked.
Great.
It's the fix to everything.
Yeah. Shut it down, restart.
Yeah.
Reboot.
Shut it down, tear everything apart, put it back together, start again.
Okay, let me go to Creator Studio. So I'd like to have the chat room so I can see what's going on there. Sorry, this is dragging on forever, everybody. We'll just make it a short show so we don't have to stay up so late. All right,
That's
I mean,
okay.
Nick's
No. I can hang. I reckon Dana's tired than me. He's been yawning his little heart out.
Yeah. I was yesterday was an extremely long day and 4 hours of sleep, and today woke up really early, so 4:45. Of course, Jeff was probably up earlier than that.
I was up at 3:30.
Ugh.
Yeah.
But that was no, that was Eastern. Never mind. Okay. Why can't I pop out my chat? Oh, come on. Oh well, I'll just leave it there. I don't know why. Why ask why? Isn't that weird? It's just one thing after another.
Always
That's how
something.
my day went yesterday.
So,
Honestly.
well, wait a minute. Is this the current chat? Okay, did the last person say nope? No, this is this is the wrong hangout.
There's a lot of activity going on in the current chat room.
Yeah. Okay, I think I need to find the show notes. I need to view my. I'm sorry, people. This is just crazy. Show the bookmarks bar. Okay, and then APG, show notes.
That's okay. We'd already planned on doing a new show tomorrow.
Really?
Well, we were talking about options.
Oh, okay.
We didn't know if you were ever coming back.
Yeah.
We just sit there going, well, when are you free next?
Okay. Pop out chat. There we go. Now that I'm in the live hangout. Yay.
Hey, it's all working now.
Okay, got that. And I know, but I feel bad for everybody that's over there in Nick world, in the UK
Like
and
10 o'clock at night.
Europe. It's like
On a
so
Wednesday.
late on Wednesday. I
Fine.
know, like people probably have jobs.
Nah.
Well, that's okay. It's only
Yeah.
4 hours difference at the moment, so we're not suffering as badly as we might.
Okay. So I got that. It's recording over here on my end. And let's just do a sound check with the sound making things.
Wow.
Sounds good.
It's sad.
So sad. Okay. We are recording. I have no idea. How long were we going before? Maybe 20 minutes?
40 something.
We were going just over an hour.
No, I
that's
mean,
like
not including all the crap. I mean,
okay.
like the actual real show.
I have no idea.
All right, pass. I'm no idea.
I'm trying to decide, where. Well, we'll just keep on going. We'll just it
We'll
might be
just start from
it
where you
can't,
think we
it
left
can't be
off.
too long of a show though, because I only have a certain amount of space left because I've been
Sure.
uploading all those plane tales.
All right.
Okay.
Dana had
Very-
just finished talking, I think.
Yep, that's correct. I was just done.
Okay. Well then, all right. Well, Dana, I'm sorry to hear about your troubles on your trip. I hope the rest of the trip goes better. Let's see, Nick, what have you been up to?
Well, I have had a trip to San Francisco. Very nice. Enjoyed that thoroughly. Put out a crew log for the patrons while I was there. We had a little meetup while I was there, which I'm hoping we can perhaps hear a little of in a moment. When I came back, I have basically been rushing around trying to do plane tales. But today I was supposed to be going over to St. Benedict's School, which have an aviation group, and they're up in London. And Rob, the vice headmaster, I think he's the vice principal, whatever. A very nice chap, had invited me up there to give a talk to their youngsters. Always keen to encourage new young people into the industry. Sadly, my car produced one of those red engine warning lights and went into limp mode. So I had to turn it around, and I took it back into my local garage and tried to get them to fix it. They couldn't, so it was stuck there. I didn't have contact details. By the time I got back home and phoned the school, it was all way too late to do it. So my apologies to Rob and the youngsters of St. Benedict's School Aviation Group. We've made a new date for that talk in a few weeks' time, and I will try and hope that my car holds out this time.
I'm sorry it's always a hassle to have car trouble, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. When I was all dolled up, all set to go, and yeah, that rather pulled the rug from under me, but I'm sure we'll get it going next time.
So tell us about the meetup you had in San Francisco on a broader.
Oh, it was excellent. It was straight after the show, really. And we went to the Thirsty Bear. And I won't go on to it about too much because there's a bit of audio, I think, Jeff, if you got that.
I believe we have that right now. So Here we go.
Okay, everybody. It's Captain Nick sitting here in the Thirsty Bear, and we've got another San Francisco meetup, which is really good because we've got some wonderful people here. And the first person I'm just going to introduce you to is Mike, who is here. How's it going, Mike?
Pretty good, Captain Nick.
Anything new between now and the last time we met up?
Not really. I did go to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Oh, tell us more.
They have a great setup there. A lot of rockets, Saturn V rocket there, and also the Space Shuttle Atlantis.
Oh, wow. That must be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Pretty impressive. Yeah.
Excellent. Good to see you. We're going to keep this short. I keep calling you Jamie.
It's Jaime. Jaime.
Jaime. Why does it start with a J?
Because it's a different sound in Spanish. So
you got some. I'm sorry, I'm making fun of your name, which is very unfair of me. You got some great news, Jaime. Give us a quick rundown.
Well, finally things are moving forward in aviation for me. I was able to find a flight school that was willing to work with my particular situation. That was trying to figure out what to do with my previous military training. And fortunately, we worked with a designated pilot examiner, and he gave us good news that all of the training that I have is going to carry towards the requirements that I'm going to have to do for my different certificates here in the U.S. So I'm going to be working with a flight school here in the local area in the Bay Area, and they're going to help me out move forward finally.
Well, that is absolutely brilliant news. Now, if all those hours are recognized, where does that put you?
That puts me just shy of 400 hours, and that puts me, I'm just going to prepare for my private pilot certificate, then work right away in my instrument rating, then commercial, and hopefully CFI, and get myself up and running.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Well done. That's fantastic news. Hi, Dave. How's things?
Doing well, Nick. Thank you. And the rest of the APG crew and community. having a good day here in San Francisco. Turns out Jaime here next to me is actually joining the flight school that I'm at. So I'm working
The same school.
It turns out, yeah, we just found out 5 minutes ago. So I'm working on my instrument rating. He's coming to join us. I also work line service for that company. So we might be colleagues and fellow students. So that should be fun.
Isn't that brilliant? What a small world.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like he's got about 3 times the amount of hours I have. So maybe he can teach me a few things as well.
Well, I think we can all learn from each other. Every day's a school day, as they say.
Sure thing. Yeah. Yep. So just keep working on that instrument rating. And but for now, I'm just going to enjoy the beer.
Yeah, you're a bit stalled with the weather, aren't you?
Well, like we were talking about, we shouldn't be stalled with the weather. It's an instrument rating, but yeah, not too good here right
It's
now.
those cross countries. They're a pain.
Sure. Yeah. But we'll get it done. Keep plugging away.
Well, we're always looking forward to hearing more news about your progress. And here's lovely Landon. Landon, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going pretty good. How is everybody? Hello, Jan Sears. Sucks you can't make it, man, but oh well. There's always another APG meetup in San Francisco if the bin liner goes down again. Friend Nick Gourmet, hey, how you doing? Sorry you didn't make it either. Nick, glad to see you here. It's been a long time coming, but hey, it's awesome as usual all the time.
Yeah, I missed the last one. You had a good time with Jan, yeah?
Yeah, so it was great last time. We didn't do a, gosh, what do you call that?
I don't know, sex?
No, we didn't do that.
So you did any flying?
No, we didn't do it. I did fly in, actually. I sure did fly in. That was a good time. Me and Jaime actually flew in on the Piper Arrow from San Jose.
Oh, excellent fun.
Yes, it was. But, hey, fun times. And I'm a little behind on some shows, but I can.
Hey, you and me both. Good to see you. Thanks so much. Here's the lovely Connie. Connie, what's new with you?
Oh, well, just glad we got this little impromptu meetup. Glad you're in town here, and good to see everybody else out from the Bay Area here. We've got quite a little group of APGers here, so it's fun to see everyone again. And yeah, like I was saying to Captain Nick, the timing is good because next weekend I'm going to be out at the Women in Aviation International Conference out in Reno. So if there are any other APG people who are going to be out at that, please find me. I'm on Slack. Yeah, I'll have to let you know how that goes. I'll write or call into APG and keep.
Please send us some audio, Connie. We'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. I will.
All right. Thanks so much. Right. From our little impromptu, and the only reason it's impromptu was because I wasn't sure I was going to be here, meet up here at was it the Hungry Bear, the Thirsty Bear, the Bear, something like that, in San Francisco. We're just waiting for Fred to arrive, but as usual, he's late. Well, I'll catch him another time. Cheers, everybody. Back to Jeff in the studio.
Well, thank you, Nick, for your on-location report at the Thirsty Bear.
Yeah, we were all very thirsty.
Well, good. That was a great piece of meetup feedback. Thank you very much for doing that. And it was great to hear from everybody. And we'll put a picture of this meetup in the show notes so you can see this great, good-looking group of people. Looks like they took the picture after Fred arrived.
Yeah, and also my rest of my flight deck crew pitched up. So
I don't see them in the picture, though. Or
no,
or
that
is
was
it?
after
Okay.
the picture was taken. So Fred had his buddy for there, Jean-Francois, and Johan from Sweden, and oh God, Daniel. No, oh Christ, I've forgotten the name of the first officer. Sorry, mate. His surname's Alan. I remember that. Gavin.
Don't worry about it.
Gavin was there as well. So we turned out to be a really good do.
Excellent. Well, you know what? There's another something that somebody did for you. I think that was he present at the meetup, or he couldn't make it, but he made up for it by doing this video?
Oh, now Jan the Man, as you probably know, works for the California Highway Patrol, Golden Gate Division, and flies the Gips Aero van, I think it is. It's kind of caravan, single engine thing, but it's got one of those amazing villain chasing cameras in its belly. And he was working that day when we got airborne, and he managed to get some pictures of me as we got airborne, which was fantastic. And then very kindly, Nev assembled them into a nice little sort of minute-long cut sequence so that we could have that. And I posted it around the internet, but maybe not everyone's seen it.
Okay, well, maybe the folks that are watching the video would like to see it, and let's see if this works here. Let me go over here to the control board and share my screen. And again, if you're listening to the audio only podcast, you need to either go and click down below if you're looking at the show notes on the website and watch the video of the hangout of the recording today. Of course, you'll probably have to scroll a couple hours before you actually get to this point in the show, because I've been at this for quite some time. Again, technical issues, but let's see. And we'll also put a link to this in the show notes. That's probably going to be easier for you to watch if you're listening to the audio only show. So let me, without further ado, hit the screen share button and select Nick's video, and here we go. I'm going to hit this and this. That is just gorgeous.
Yeah, Jan did a lovely job. I really got to thank him for that. Yeah, so it's got an amazing camera underneath, and I love the infrared. I
was going to say that was my favorite part of it, is the infrared view, and you could see the exhaust coming out of the engines, and that was really, really cool.
Yeah, or hot, as the case may be.
Mm-hmm. And then you could see the exhaust plumes coming out when the latter part of that video. Very, very cool.
Yeah, what was pretty impressive was how warm the windshields are, because they're heated on the ground, and they stood out really clearly, because they're pretty hot at that point when you're not flying. They're just chuntering away. So yeah, and I loved it. It was very kind. So my thanks to you, Jan, for that. That was absolutely brilliant.
I have a question. Did you have the APU running at the time?
No, we shut it down after start,
Okay.
so that was just the residual heat. Sadly, Jan was expecting me apparently to get airborne off one of the 2.8s. He said he was all set up with a plan in mind to shoot me going over the city, and of course the runway in use was one right. We were light enough to get airborne off one right, short of taxi. So without thinking about it, we said, well, no, we're happy with one right. So that he was kind of going,
screwed up his plans.
Yeah, ruined his plan. I had to reorganize life, but thanks anyway.
No, it turned out great nonetheless. Really cool.
Yes. Okay. Again, if you're listening to the audio only, just look for this link in the show notes and watch it, because I think you'll be very impressed. Steph, so what have you been up to? I know it hasn't been long since our last show recording, just a few days, but
what have I been up to? Nothing aviation related. Nick mentioned car troubles. So I have a new car, as I think I mentioned last show, which is currently in the shop. Not my fault.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
So one of the I guess this was over the weekend, maybe Sunday or Monday, coming into Monday, I went out into the garage and I looked at the car, and I'm looking at it's a Jeep with a hard top. So it's a removable hard top on the back of the Wrangler. And I'm looking at the window on the passenger side, and it just didn't seem to be sitting quite flush where it's supposed to. And I looked at it, and the seal on the bottom had come loose. And you could actually, reach up inside the car underneath the window and say, well, that's not supposed to be the case. So I had some rain this week, so I made sure I took it in. It went in. Actually, it was supposed to be the first appointment this morning. I took it in yesterday before it started raining. And apparently it takes 2 days to change a piece of glass for some reason. So hopefully I'll have it back tomorrow. But in the meantime, I have a lovely minivan to drive, which let me tell you how thrilled I am about that. It's a great car.
Not too bad. What kind of minivan is it?
A Grand Caravan, a Dodge Grand Caravan. It's terrible. It's awful. I know everyone says this, but I will never buy one.
Oh, come on. You're practicing to be a mother.
And drastic would have to happen.
You got to take the kids to soccer practice.
Worse
Come
than
on.
Children. No. They can go to the Jeep. So that's all that's happening in my life that's new and exciting. So
is that Jeff blushing?
It might be. I don't know.
I think
I'm just
so.
having fun. I'm just happy to be here, man. And I'm happy that everything's working again and that you can all hear me. All right. Anything else before we move on?
Let's get this show on the road.
Oh, let's do that. Okay, here we go. Let's do the Java Jive.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup.
All right. That's the Jeff Smith and the Java Jive tailored version for the Airline Pilot Guy show. And he's singing about Java and the Coffee Fund because that is your way to support the show financially, if you have the financial resources to do so. So again, as we always say, if you need your money for sustenance and shelter and all that good stuff, then, flight lessons, the most important part, please don't send us any money. But if you have a couple shekels here and there you want to throw our way, please do by heading over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. Since the last show, the PayPal, the classic coffee fund method, Chris Randall, his recurring payment or contribution. And we have some new producers, yay, at Patreon. They're new patrons. We have Zach Holderfield, Texas Amlashok, Dom Burke, and Tim Hitchcock. All new producers. Actually, Dom is a new executive producer. So thank you very much, Dom, for that. If you want to learn more about the Coffee Fund, become part of the Coffee Fund cadre, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee today. Okay, the first item in the news folder is an article about the U.S. Air Force C-5M Super Galaxy performs a nose gear up landing again. And oh wait, that's not a good thing. I guess they didn't want to perform a nose gear up landing. It's the second time, it says, and according to this article, in less than a year that a C-5M Super Galaxy ended up having to land without its nose wheels extended. I think there are 4 nose wheels on that big beast. Let's see. There were 11 personnel on board, but no injuries reported. Noteworthy, although this was the first incident of this kind for the 433rd Airlift Wing, it's the second time a C-5M landed on its nose in less than 1 year. We just talked about that. The Super Galaxy, I guess sometime last year, performed a nose gear up landing at Rota Air Base in Spain. As a consequence of the second malfunction of the C-5's nose landing gear, the U.S. Air Force, for that one earlier or last year, the U.S. Air Force initially grounded 18 Galaxy cargo planes based at Dover Air Force Base out of 56 flown by the Air Mobility Command, pending further investigation But let's see, and that was on July 18th. But on the very next day, the AMC, I should know what that stands for. Something mobility air something mobility command. General Carlton Everhart ordered a fleet-wide assessment of the command's 56 C5s. And what they found during the assessment is that the ball screw drive assembly, I was going to say, it's obviously the ball screw drive assembly causing the problem, but they didn't ask me.
Anyone knows that. I don't.
I know.
Yeah.
Come on.
Jeez.
She was causing issues with the extension and retraction of the nose landing gear. And we all know how embarrassing that can be.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, it goes on to say that they're trying to figure out what's going on with this. They're going to get it fixed, and those big, giant, beautiful airplanes will be flying again, I'm sure, soon. So there you go. There's a little military news for those of you who crave that kind of thing. Fighter pilot. Oh, more military news. A fighter pilot blamed by Russia for downing the Malaysian Airlines plane found dead. A Ukrainian fighter pilot blamed by the Kremlin in the downing of Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 has committed suicide, according to reports. Captain Vladislav Varshin, 29,
Nice. Bless you.
who had claimed to be the victim of a smear campaign by Moscow, shot himself in his Mykolaiv home near the Black Sea, the BBC reported. Dutch authorities, I was thinking when I was reading this, wait a minute, I thought that it was downed by a missile. And according to this article, Dutch authorities concluded that a Buk missile that had been moved from Russia into eastern Ukraine had destroyed the Boeing 777 jet, killing 298 people on July 17, 2014. The findings contradicted Moscow's claims that the plane, en route from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur, was brought down by the Ukrainian military. So it goes on to talk a little bit about this young man that committed suicide. I don't know, something's fishy here. First of all, it sounds to me like maybe Russia was trying to deflect blame by, blaming this Ukrainian fighter pilot for downing the flight. Obviously, the Dutch authorities don't believe that story. And I'm wondering if this is really truly a suicide or not. I mean, things have been going on. Wasn't there something recently in the news, Nick, in the UK?
In the UK.
Russian.
Well, we're still waiting to find out the final results of all the investigations that are going on following the poisoning of he was a turned Russian agent, and his daughter were poisoned with sarin, which is a nerve agent. So it's banned under the Geneva. Well, I'm not quite sure which convention it is, but anyway, it's a toxic nerve agent that is banned for use. And the UK authorities have identified it specifically as one that was made in Russia. So, if either the Russians used it or they gave it to someone else to use, both of which are supposedly banned. Interesting. They seem to be just going around the world doing whatever they damn well want and then claiming it's all sorts of other rubbish, and trying to obfuscate, I should say, the real reasons. But we're just plowing ahead quietly with our investigations, and I guess we'll get to the bottom of it eventually.
Well, the police where he lived, this man who committed suicide posted a statement on Facebook in which they described his death as a suicide, but it's being probed under the premeditated murder section of Ukraine's penal code. So maybe they don't believe it was a suicide either.
I mean, sad story all around. You have the whole MH17 thing in the first place, and then for stuff to just continue, going on with people being blamed and perhaps unfairly so, and to the point where, more lives are lost. It's sad.
That makes a good point. If you subscribe to the Russian podcast, the Airline pilot Gaisky, you a little bit more information, at least from their point of view.
You'll get a different perspective.
Oh, Nev. You're a crazy man. Okay, well, I don't know if we're ever going to hear anything more about that, but that is a sad story. Let's see. Speaking of sad stories, this happened not well, kind of in your neck of the woods, Nick. Looks like an engineer has died after a Red Arrows jet crashed at RAF Valley on Anglesey. How do you pronounce that?
Anglesey, yeah, it's an island northwest Wales where there's an RAF fast jet training base. I spent 4 years there before I dug a tunnel and escaped.
That good, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's a little remote, and golly, when I was there, they didn't even open the pubs on a Sunday. So yeah.
That's criminal.
One of the Red Arrows, which fly the Hawk T1 T1A, I think, was over there. Now it's very early on; we don't really know what's happened, but it looks like the pilot got airborne, decided to return, and at some point, very late on the approach, the pilot ejected. Now, very sadly, he had this engineer on board who was a RAF corporal sitting in the back seat. Now, that's the seat the instructor normally sits in, but when there's only one pilot, the pilot sits in the front seat. Now, the way the Hawk is set up, the instructor is normally the captain in the back seat, and he can command eject both pilots or both occupants out of the aircraft. But when you've got a passenger, as this corporal engineer would have been in the instructor seat, in the back seat, then the pilot in the front, he would have previously disabled the command eject because you don't want the rear seat occupant accidentally ejecting both of the occupants. So you turn that off, and then you have to do an independent ejection if there is a problem. Now, the pilot seems to have got out successfully, albeit it appears it was quite a low level, but the backseater didn't. The engineer died in the crash, which is incredibly sad. But we're just waiting to find out what the reason was and what had occurred to the aircraft and why he didn't have time to eject.
Sad story. Yeah. I guess, pilots, we probably receive a heck of a lot more training on the use of an ejection seat and or maybe a little bit more aware of situations that are going bad and can quickly make that decision and eject ourselves or start the ejection sequence. But apparently the corporal in the back didn't have that same sense and just didn't get it accomplished in time.
No. I mean, if it's very close to the ground, the seat is pretty capable, but you do have to be pretty smart on that ejecting seat handle. And yeah, that may be the cause, but we're guessing.
Right. It just recently happened. Just yesterday, I think, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, our thoughts and prayers go to the loss of life there in the family and friends.
Absolutely.
Last show, we were talking about the woes of pet travel on United Airlines, specifically, but not all airlines are getting away with smooth rides as far as pets on airplanes and snafus and such. In fact, I think Acme had a recent thing in the news, I think today or yesterday, that one pet had gotten on the wrong flight or something. But
those pets, they just don't read the gate number.
Mm-hmm.
If they looked at the signs, they wouldn't get on the wrong flight. What's the matter with them?
Pay attention.
I don't know.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, they do.
Apparently, they're not as smart as we thought.
Poorly trained animals.
Well, so anyway, United suspends pet cargo flights. It's suspending the program that transports pets and cargo holds. It will stop accepting new reservations for its Pet Safe program, though it will honor any reservations made through March 20th, the airline said. The suspension comes as United reviews its pet transport policies, a process that should be completed by May 1st. We're going to do a top-to-bottom review of the Pet Safe operation, said United spokesman Charlie Hobart. Our goal is to continue to ensure the safety and comfort of pets and all animals that fly with us. passengers can still carry small pets with them in carry-on luggage. Just don't put them in the overhead bin. Starting in April, in-cabin pets will be issued bright-colored bag tags to help identify the animals. United has experienced some major pet traveling disasters recently. Last week, of course, we all know about that. We don't need to recap that. So that was the news that I thought that we would bring to you and let you know that United has said, perhaps we should look at our program and see what's going on here so that we don't have any more incidents that make us look bad in the news.
Yeah, it's probably best just to not carry any than pick up all that bad publicity.
Exactly. Update on the let's see, Antonov 148 crash that took off, and shortly after takeoff from Moscow crashed. This is the one where we believe there was evidence that they did not turn on the pitot heat systems, and they had some unreliable airspeed indications, and they ended up crashing. Let's see, on March 20th, which was just yesterday. We're recording the show on the 21st. The Russia's Ministry of Transport issued a directive to suspend all flights on any aircraft type operated by Saratov Airlines as a result of violations having been found. An assessment of risks and corrective actions to maintain an acceptable level of safety and to eliminate identified violations of air legislation is to be undertaken. Based on the results of the checks of the Antonov 148s of Saratov Airlines, the Ministry of Transport is going to undertake unscheduled inspections of the AN 148s operated by other airlines to ensure compliance with airworthiness requirements. Based on the results of those inspections, further decisions may be made. So I guess
very sensible, considering we were all in a bit of doubt about the suitability of that airline, the way they were operating.
Yes. And finally, remember the Shoreham air crash? There was an air show in Shoreham in August of 2015, and the what was it? A Hawker Hunter jet crashed onto the A27 in Sussex. It turns out that the pilot of the vintage jet, which crashed onto the dual carriageway, is to be, and that it killed 11 men, is to be charged with manslaughter. Andy Hill was performing aerobatics when the Hawker Hunter jet crashed. Families of those who died have waited nearly 3 years to learn what charges or whether charges would be brought. Mr. Hill, who is 54 on Thursday, is due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 19th of April. He is to face counts of manslaughter by gross negligence and endangering an aircraft, the Crown Prosecution Service said. So what do you think of this?
I don't know, Jeff. I'm kind of leaning two ways here because, we all love our air shows. We all like them to be exciting, etc. And it's not an easy thing to do, to be an air show pilot. This guy was very well respected and admired in the air show world. And he had previously more or less been fault-free. However, there is a feeling that he flew his maneuvers at the beginning of this. They were a little bit of an impromptu thing, and they weren't quite within the correct bounds of the requirements of the air show. But at the time, there weren't a lot of checks being done, and a lot of aircraft were doing similar things. So that was kind of what was going on at the time. And he obviously made a mistake. Now, he was pretty severely injured in the crash. It was amazing he survived. I'm not quite sure how much he will be able to recall about what happened. So he'll be sitting there, and I suspect a little bit of a passenger when it comes to this court case. But on the other hand, if he did deliberately do something that was negligent, then I think the authorities probably have the right to look at that and press charges. To me, it's very sad.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question really is, can they go back and prove that what he was doing was definitely negligent? Was it done carelessly and recklessly? No, and with the knowledge that that could be harmful. And I guess that's what they have to figure out if they can decide. But I'm with you, Nick. I think this is a hard one either way. It's
Yep. I've got kind of really two minds on this.
Yeah, in one way, it seems like they may be wanting to make an example out of him and maybe to justify all the harsh restrictions on air shows since that crash. I don't know.
Yes, of course, there's an awful lot of families who are kind of looking for someone to blame, and there's only one person, really.
Yeah.
That's the pilot of the aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the same time, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dana. Go ahead.
Okay, continue. Go.
Oh, I was going to say, if there's no one else that can corroborate what happened and he can't give that information, accidents do happen as well. It may not have been something that was grossly negligent or at least outside of those rules at that time. And, that's a lot of for them to wait this long and then go ahead and do this. I have to think that they at least have some idea that they need to investigate that further. So
I was just going to say, unless they have some type of recording or recorder of the event, it's going to be really difficult to prove gross negligence on this gentleman. I mean, obviously, with him surviving, and Nick pointed out quite well, is the likelihood of him having a memory of what exactly happened is very unlikely. So, it is one of those situations where, unfortunately, the families are suffering a terrible loss, and they feel as though the finger needs to be pointed. But it's going to be one of those really hard scenarios. So I'm kind of like with the rest of you guys. It's a heartbreak for the family, a heartbreak for this gentleman that survived, and there's no good outcome on this, I don't think.
No, and hopefully we'll be kept abreast of what happens as far as the charges, and if it goes to trial, and hearing some more evidence regarding the charge of gross negligence and endangering an aircraft. I would say endangering the public, not the aircraft, but I guess the aircraft didn't survive either. So
yeah, that might just be a quirk of the way the law is written.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. Well, that is it for our news folder on this show. Not quite so news heavy as the last one. So let's move on to the best part of the show, which of course is your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
All right. We'll start with Steve. He has some questions for Dana. Hi, APG crew. This is mainly for Dana. Dana, congratulations on your upcoming promotion to captain. Could you explain what your upcoming captain conversion course will be like? What's the course content and structure? Assuming you will stay on the same equipment, what is it that you actually need to learn, and what will you be tested on? How many sim sessions? And again, what do you expect from the sim sessions? Anything in particular you're most nervous about? And how many trips with a check airman before you get let loose? For Nick and Jeff, what would be your advice to Dana in both getting through the course and then operationally moving to the left-hand seat? Good luck, Dana. Again, that was from Steve Hurst. So, Dana, take it away.
Hey, well, thank you very much for that excellent question, Steve. And well, it's for me, it's a very short course from right seat to left seat, because I am currently qualified and typed on the aircraft, actually. Type rating to fly the DC-9, which covers the MD-88, MD-90, and I believe, no, maybe not 7-1. I can't remember what 7-1's under that one. But anyways, the structure of the course is, for the short course for me, is 7, believe it or not, just 7 sims. And they basically take particular parts of the long course, which is the full blown course, out of the syllabus, and they use individual parts of the long course to get you trained on the left seat. I am not, I'll be quite honest, I am not the best person in the sim. I have check-ride-itis in a big way. I get very nervous, and I'm very, as most pilots are on themselves, I am hypercritical on my performance as a pilot. So I find it particularly stressful to go through training, and it's probably the reason why I'm still on the 88 in the right seat, because I've been trying to avoid training. I knew that this was probably going to be my last chance to go to the left seat on the 88 as the aircraft looks forward to retiring. I'm sure some people are looking forward to it retiring, but I in particular love the airplane, so I didn't want to miss the opportunity to fly it from the left seat. I am nervous. Training for me is a big deal, but also nervous to become a captain. I've been a first officer almost my entire career. I have very little experience being in the left seat and making those decisions. So I am going to be nervous about making everyday decisions. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it's always going to keep me questioning to make sure that I'm making the decisions that are the most prudent ones by using the guidance established by the standard operational procedures of the company, the FAA, and of course, the most important one, safety. So, I am nervous about that, but I've had some great captains that I've flown with, the present company included. I'm flying with another one on this trip who's given me some guidance, and I've actually moved over to the left seat doing pre-flight duties, trying to get myself used to sitting over there to make my transition a whole lot easier.
That's easy, Dana. All you do is just sit there and read the newspaper. Or,
the first officer does all the work for you. That's it, right?
I'm interested to see how that is, because you know what, I actually enjoy not doing nothing. So I do not mind going to do the walk around, come back in, doing the pre-flight and program the FMS. It's perfectly fine by me. It keeps me busy. So, but I'm really, I really appreciate the question, Steve. It's going to be a challenge, and I've kind of been thinking up until just starting of this past trip, actually. And I said to Julie, my wife, I said to her, honey, this is my 6th to last trip on this airplane as a first officer. And it hit me. And I said, wow, I'm going to be upgrading captain. I only have 5 trips after this trip. So it's kind of sinking home. And as I said to another friend, it's a lifelong dream. I've always wanted to be in this position. I've always wanted to wear the uniform and put the 4th stripe on. So now it says, if you're not watching the video today, which most of you aren't, Captain Jeff is still in his uniform wearing his 4th stripe. And so I'm looking forward to, as I'm sitting here looking at him, buying those stripes and looking like the captain. So it's an adventure, and it's a new chapter in my life, and I'm really looking forward to it. So on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Nick and Jeff, because I'm certainly wanting to get everybody's input as to what would make me a better captain.
Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, well, don't forget to strap in facing forwards, and yours is the seat. Yours is the seat on the left. That's the important bit. You're going to set the tone for your flight. You're going to do it professionally. You're going to do it in a easygoing manner, which is just like you. You're going to make it a comfortable environment for people. You're going to allow your first officers to do their thing and help you, and not try and be a one-man band. You're going to be just perfect, and you've got a wealth of experience. You just need the confidence to know that you can do the job, and just quietly get on with it. That's about the only advice I'm going to offer.
Wait a minute, don't you know? Obviously, you don't know Dana.
Clearly, bad jokes, bad hair. No hair.
Yeah. So, of course, I'm kidding. I've flown with Dana many, many times, and he is a very accomplished and competent pilot. And so here's the deal, Dana. So you're going, I know you're apprehensive about this whole thing. And of course, I agree with you. I hate being in the simulator as well. So, I think, and you're right. Most of us, if not all of us, are too hard on ourselves, and we tend to dwell on little mistakes that we make here and there. And sometimes that can be to our detriment in the simulator, but you just got to let those things, slide off the back, or whatever the phrase is. but roll off your back. What is it, Steph?
Water off a duck's back.
Yeah, water.
There you go.
Whatever. Yeah. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that doesn't
There's a
know what it is.
phrase.
There is a phrase. It's a really common one that I'm just gonna remember. But anyway, so and here's the little secret. After, and I guarantee, and I want you to admit this to everyone once you've gone through the course and you've gone through your OEs and you're a full-fledged captain for maybe a few weeks or a couple of months, and you're going to say, you know what? I can't believe I didn't do this earlier, because it's no big deal, because you already know how to fly the airplane. It's just a matter of going from, this hand is on the throttles and this hand is on the yoke to, the other hand. And it really, you'd think that would be a hard thing to make the transition, but it's not. It's just almost immediate. You'll get used to it. You'll be doing a few sims, and before you get in the airplane, it'll be all, secondhand, just, nature. And as far as decision making is concerned, you're a level-headed person, a rational person, and
Who, me?
Yeah, I know. I'm not I'm not telling any secrets here. Even though you like to do a lot of self-deprecation, it's not the case. He's a very sharp guy. He's going to make great decisions. You have all the resources of our company to look at our operations policies, and if in case you're, but my biggest piece of advice to you would be, don't get so wrapped up on every little thing going into the operations manual to see what the policy is, and use your head. You have been around for a while. You understand how things work, and I guarantee you're gonna say, oh man, Jeff, this is like not a big deal. I wish I'd done this earlier, and this is a lot of fun. And you always get to fly with your most favorite captain, yourself.
That's very true. And you did mention a couple things that prompted me. Number one, he did ask, what's my operation experience going to be required? It's going to be 2 3-day trips, or I think it's 30 hours, right around there. And the other thing is, you mentioned it, Jeff, and I was just talking about this with the other captain about what I'm nervous about. I am also very nervous about flying with all the new hires and making the right decisions and guiding them as a new captain. So that's something I'm also considering, because it's not all about my skill. I know how to fly the airplane. I've been on a long time, just like you have. It's just making the right decision at the right time to take the airplane and not hurt the guy's feelings, or when do I interact and say, hey, this is what I think would help you out to make you a better pilot. I mean, I've been an instructor for a very long time. I've been a flight instructor. I've been a sim instructor, a ground school instructor, but I guess you could say it better. I'm a scuba diver instructor, so I understand how to teach, and I just want to make sure that I'm being productive for my new first officers and trying to, to mold our new cadre of pilots into the best pilots that we can have in the system. So,
well, just make sure you take your baseball bat with you, Dana.
Just knock them out. Yeah.
I just, it's the same briefing I give the captains. You do anything that's going to kill me, I'll knock you out. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take that out of your briefing. Well, maybe. might sound a little different coming.
That might set the wrong tone.
Just make sure they understand you're joking.
Steve didn't ask me to give you any advice, but I've got a little bit anyway if you wanted. I was just going to say, all that experience you just talked about, trust it, because you already have everything you need. So you're going to do great.
Yep. And you have the advantages I did when I upgraded. I went from having experience as a first officer for many years in the 727, and then moving to the left seat was just a matter. I already knew the airplane. I knew how it flew. It's just a matter of, getting used to which hand does what and making good decisions. And finally, I guess I can say that this whole thing is going to be nothing but a big old fat nothing burger.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, and
it's easy for me to say. I know, but just think, Dan. This is one of the things that got me through, or got me over my apprehension. I thought about some of the knuckleheads I'd flown with in the past that were captains. I'm thinking, if they can make it and upgrade to captain, then sure as heck I can.
Wow. Yeah. You know what? You mentioned that way. You're absolutely right.
Think about some of the guys you've flown with, Dana. Come on, really. You're going to go, oh, okay, yeah.
That's a comforting thought for the flying public out there. Thank you for that, Jeff.
When we say, knucklehead, I don't mean it in a really strict way.
Just
but
they're not your favorite captain. That's all you're saying, right?
The ones that I consider knuckleheads, it wasn't that they didn't know how to fly an airplane. It was that they didn't know how to make decisions, and so they would just let and him and haw and not do anything and be indecisive. And you, as the first officer, are going, Jim, come on, let's make the decision. This is what we need to do. What's wrong with you? Why are you sitting in the left seat? And you got to make the decision. Don't be afraid to make decisions, even if it's wrong.
Well, the good part about this stuff is that it's almost, not saying it's impossible because it's never impossible, but the likelihood of there being two knuckleheads in one location on the same airplane is far less likely.
The real reason there's two pilots.
And that's the problem with the trip that we're going to be flying later in April. There'll be two knuckleheads in that cockpit.
No, it's going to be the captain wannabe trying not to be the captain.
Oh no, I'm gonna refer to you as Captain Dana the whole time, and you're gonna make all the decisions.
So should I wear my fourth stripe?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think so.
All right, so great, Steve. Great questions for Dana. Anything else anybody want to add before we move on to the next piece of feedback?
No, I'm out of advice. Okay, move on.
All right. Let's see. Christian sent this in, and this is something that we have covered in the past, but it's been quite some time. In fact, I'm not even sure if we were doing the panel kind of thing. If I may have been the old school solo show, but I do remember covering this. Do you remember this at all, guys, or was this something?
Vaguely, if it's the same one that I recall. Yep.
Yeah, this guy lives in a 727, a Boeing 727, 6 months of the year, just outside of Portland, Oregon. And let's see, he offers tours. And I'm thinking, wow, that would be fun to go up there and do an APG meetup at this guy's 727 in the woods in Portland, Oregon, because I love Portland, first of all, and I love 727s, second of all, and I love APG meetups, third of all. So it looks like it has all the makings of a great meetup maybe sometime in the future. Anyway, so he sent a link to this YouTube video. Actually, it's a website, atlasobscura.com, places airplane home in the woods. And I think there is a YouTube video of this somewhere floating around. Anyway, this is from Christian Base, and he has some pictures here that will have a link to his feedback in the show notes, and you can see some of these photos taken of this guy's 727 home, at least half the year in the woods. And he said also, and just for Captain Nick, here's a Swedish hotel in a 747 at Stockholm's Arlanda Airport. And he put a link for us there to look at. Maybe a romantic night in the cockpit. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Know what I mean? Might change his opinion.
Well, there's not room to swing a cat in that damn cockpit.
It is you'd think that a 747 cockpit would be huge, but you're right, Nick. It's
No, the only thing big in a 747 cockpit are all the egos.
Oh my.
And well, I'm not going to go into that.
Well, they say of a man who flies a big airplane, right?
No.
Family show, folks. Family show.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
Okay, so thanks, Christian, for reminding us of this guy. I guess the other 6 months of the year, he is in Japan working on another acquisition, a 747 that he lives in over there. So interesting guy.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. I have to say, I'm looking at pictures of the interior. It all looks a bit Heath Robinson to me. It's kind of not exactly... very
luxury.
Well put together or something. There's bits of wire hanging everywhere and everything's sort of just stacked up. It's like he's just got a big aluminium tube to live in, which is basically what he's got. But he hasn't made much of an effort, I don't think, to make it look particularly stylish.
I have a feeling that he's single.
Yes.
What gives you that impression?
I just have this feeling. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's dirty.
You know what I mean?
Well, apparently the big claim to fame for this aircraft is that it flew a dead body to Greece. I mean, it flew Aristotle Onassis' his body home to Greece for burial. So it had Jackie Onassis
and the family
on board.
Interesting.
Yeah. He had it fumigated though before he took possession. Okay, let's see. Chuck writes, preparing for a glider rating. He said, hello, airline pilot guy crew. I've been listening for about 6 months now. I enjoy everything about your podcast. What? Everything, Chuck? Come on. I'm currently working on a private pilot license glider rating, a PPL glider rating. I have several solo flights now and have passed my written. Now, the check ride. Do any of you have any suggestions on what I should focus on to prepare for it? If I remember correctly, I think Nick flew gliders. Thanks again for the great podcast. Keep up the great work. And this is Chuck from Berkeley Springs, West Virginia.
Yeah, I did. And the one piece of advice I had, wouldn't concentrate too much on the missed approach procedure if I were you.
That's easy.
And that's one of those cases you probably can't always go around.
Yes.
Exactly.
Committed to the landing at that point.
Yeah. The last time I flew a glider was probably 1973. So I think there's lots of people out there with some better advice than mine.
I would imagine it's like the same advice that anybody would have for any kind of check ride, right?
Mm-hmm. And, just like any other check ride, I believe there is a practical test standards from the FAA for this. So that's a good place to start because it'll give you everything that they're going to basically test you to on the check ride. So if you can go through that and be confident with all of that information and all of those procedures, maneuvers, that's a great starting point if you're not sure where to start. But I'm sure your instructor has a lot of good information for you as well. So,
Dana, you're a flight instructor. Any advice as regards?
Well, I kind of like what you guys are giving me. It's the most important thing is on any check ride, it's in itself very stressful. So if you can go in and be relaxed and realize that person's really not there necessarily to be hard on you. They're just to evaluate you. And the big thing of that is, are you safe? That's what they're really looking for. They're not really looking for, okay, can he hold his altitude within 3 feet? I mean, can he do a pinpoint churn? Can he, find the next heat, what's it called? Oh my God, I'm having, updraft. These are the things that's what the evaluator is looking for. So if you can go into the check ride and feel as though you feel confident but not overconfident, that you're open to suggestions and just be humble and be ready for any questions that have anything to do with your aircraft, limitations, weight restrictions, familiarity with the airport you're at, regulations. As long as you have that information down, it's going to help you to prepare better. So I think just relax, have fun with it. It's hard to say that because, as I just got through saying, I have the worst check ride itis, but I also had the worst test itis. So when I was in college or high school and elementary and so forth, I'd always get very nervous. So if you can relax, that's my biggest point of advice, because they're just looking to make sure you're safe.
Yep. And actually, you can find those practical test standards online. Just do a Google search for it. The FAA makes that available. So there's an examiner's checklist in there in terms of what they're actually looking for. But Dana gave great advice. So there you go. Interesting stuff. I don't know anything about gliders. I'm reading through this a little bit. It has a section about launches and landings, aero tow. There's a subsection called boxing the wake. I don't know what that means at all, but
boxing the wake.
Interesting stuff.
I think that probably refers to dodging the turbulence behind the tow aircraft.
Sure. Yep.
So being able to fly the airplane in a box around the wake. But I am guessing. Actually, Marcus might pipe up. You never know. If Marcus hears this, he might be able to provide some information. But of course, the tests in Germany are probably going to be different to America.
Yeah. In addition to knowing your go-around procedures very well, also practice the engine out procedures. That would be my advice.
It should be second nature.
Engine fires, things like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Chuck, hopefully that didn't hurt too much. And it may have helped, hopefully. Thanks for sending in your question. And please let us know how it went. Miles writes, now this is an interesting one. How practical would it be for commercial air transport, not carrying passengers, to refuel in the air as they do in the military? This would seem to be a way to keep a plane in the air long enough to be worth the costs. I'm sure Boeing would love to sell civilian versions of military planes that can be refueled in the air. Former military pilots with in the air refueling would be worth paying more for the experience. So I read this a few times, and I put a little note here. Civilian planes with no packs? It doesn't seem to be a very good business plan.
I had the same thought. Was he referring to cargo? But not military?
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
I wasn't sure, though. I wasn't sure.
What threw me off was like commercial air transport that are supposed to carry passengers but don't carry passengers that were refueled. And so, okay, I thank you, Steph. That makes a lot more sense now from that perspective.
I'm just taking a guess.
Yeah, freight operations doing air-to-air refueling. I have a feeling, I suspect that the complication of air refueling, the equipment, the training required to keep everybody up to speed with being proficient at it would just be so overwhelmingly expensive that it wouldn't make any economic sense whatsoever.
And I don't know how necessary. I think if we're definitely talking about cargo operations, they have, their operations set up so that they're going to be making stops along the way for loading, unloading cargo, and also refueling. So I don't know what demand there is for flying for such a long distance that you would need air-to-air refueling.
I'm weighing up the cost of having a specialist tanker for you to refuel off against dropping into a convenient airport for an hour to gas up and go on to where it is you need the extra fuel to go to. So I'm thinking, nah, it doesn't really work. I mean, the cost of a landing fee against the cost of taking a tanker off, paying his takeoff and landing fee to come up and find you. So you're not actually saving anything there. You've got to effect a join. You've always got the risk factor of flying two vast airplanes next door to each other, which would be well beyond that would be acceptable for a civil operator, I suspect. So much as I think it would be a fun thing for us to do, I don't think it's a practical or safe option.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for the question and made us think a little bit about that, Miles. And hopefully that satisfied you. Ben writes, Ben Ippolito on Facebook, he wrote in and saying, regarding the parking the jetway, aerobridge, finger, it depends on the model of bridge. The ones I drove with wheels, as opposed to the ones that directly extend only without lateral movement, you just push the joystick in the direction you want it to go. The logic in the system works out the steering angle stuff for you. You're trained where to aim for as far as alignment of the door. The bridges at the airport I worked at had marks for the various types and where to align the door inside the bridge. That supposedly made the outside of the bridge miss all the important bits on the aircraft. Although I was aware of certain types where it was very close, so that with them you tended to favor going too far to the safe side. In particular, for the operation I worked for, the difference between the probe locations with the original 737s versus the new generation's probes, the latter which had probes located much farther forward than the 200 model. So anyway, I'd much rather not be able to open the door fully than hear very expensive noises when 40,000 kilograms of aerobridge hits the pitot angle of attack sensors on the side of the aircraft. Yeah. I guess my point, regarding the driving the jetways and looking at the wheels and the pointer to show which way the wheels are going, because I've seen it so many times where I've been out there and the person, is really getting frustrated and they're pushing and pulling and pulling and pushing and going side to side with the little stick. And I'm looking out the window and I'm watching the wheels and they're just kind of going around and around. They're just kind of like doing a pirouette and just going around in circles. And I'm thinking, well, that jet was never going to get to the airplane if we
They're just
don't
spinning their
figure out
wheels,
which way to stop and see which way the wheels are pointed, and then make that adjustment and then go from there. And then you don't have to. I don't mean to stare at the whole thing the whole time. I mean just to kind of get an idea of where your wheels are pointed, and then I think you're going to have a better go at it. Yeah, but that's just me. I don't have any experience driving jetways, and I'm sure I never will. So
sounds like they're
it's not.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say it really is not. I've spent years driving jetways, and it's really not a complex operation. But I do have to make a comment. If like most people driving cars, most people are okay with and understand how to drive a car. But if you don't have that chip in your brain that you can actually drive well, and you may not be able to understand the concept of working these wheels back and forth and driving the jetway up to the aircraft. So some people just have natural aptitude towards things, and some people just don't. And it's not a very complex thing. There are different types of jetways out there, and there's different types of technology on jetways now, and it's the older style, a little bit more difficult to figure out where the wheels are. You'd sit there and spin them, and the indicator in the jetway can and sometimes doesn't even work at all. So it's not until you actually move the jetway that you can figure out which direction it's going to go. So anyways, that's my piece on jetways.
Okay. And I think that you're the only one here on the crew that has any experience with it. So
I walk down them a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I have a funny feeling Jeff and I a little more than Nick.
Yes.
Because we do it 7, 10, 12 times in one trip.
Yeah. Well, do you keep forgetting things?
No, because we swap aircraft every time we go through anywhere. So we're always going on and off the airplanes because we're changing them all the time.
Ah, okay. They keep breaking. I see.
Well, that's true too. No. Well, we won't take them if they're not safe.
That's true. Hey, Steph, you want to do this one?
Yeah, we're ready to move on. So this one is from PJ about a breastfeeding mom. And I think this came in a while ago. Not sure. Anyway, PJ says, "Hey guys and Steph, just catching up on some podcasts, running a couple months behind. Just listened to 306 and the story about the mom who was kicked off for refusing to stop breastfeeding. Wanted to offer a quick thought. While a child under 2 does not need to have their own seat, a parent certainly can purchase a seat for them. We did that once for a trip to Hawaii when our daughter was 1. What we learned is that if a child has a reserved seat, they must be secured in that seat for taxi, takeoff, and landing, regardless of age. Ironic that if you don't purchase the seat, they're fine if you hold the child, but if you purchase the seat, you cannot elect whether to use it. Not saying that this is the case here, but a possibility. That said, it sounds like we don't have the full story here. So, in other news, I was also on a cruise the week of January 14th, so I'm looking forward to listening to 307 or 308 to hear about her trip and Dana's as well. Who knows, we might have been in the same port. Going back all the way to January when Dana and I were on cruises as well. Blue skies and tailwinds at cruise from PJ. So, yeah, that's true. And actually the last flight I took, there was, I think, one child on the entire aircraft who happened to be sitting behind me with their parental unit. And that child was under the age of 2. They did not have a seat purchased separately, but the seat next to the parent was open. And same thing, they were allowed to use that seat, but if the child was in the seat, they had to be buckled in. But if they were sitting in the same seat with the parent, all they had to do was hold them. So that is true.
Very good. All right. Thank you, PJ. Good to hear from you. And who knows, you guys may have been on the same cruise ship, or at least the same port.
Could have been.
We were talking about that crop duster video. I believe it was Ray Williams sent it in, if I'm remembering that correctly. Well, anyway, I'll read what Luke has to say regarding the episode "Airing Your Dirty Laundry." The crop dusting plane you were attempting to identify in the first bit of feedback was, in fact, not a Pilatus, but a Pacific Aerospace Corporation's PAC Cresco, a plane that is manufactured here in New Zealand. Bonus fact, crop dusting, known as aerial top dressing in New Zealand, was actually invented in New Zealand. Thank you for all that you do and the team. Thank you for all that you and the team do. Love your work. Luke, and he puts in parentheses, Aero Kiwi, and he said, P.S. I think that the Flying Kiwi stole my name. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Fighting words there.
Mhm.
Yeah, those effing Kiwis.
The flying Kiwis, you mean?
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean.
That's what he means by F.
Yeah, exactly. I was just clarifying.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so he has actually, I looked up the Cresco and found these images on Google search, and sure enough, that is the airplane that we were looking at in the video. So you are correct, Luke. Oh, and his name is Luke too. Wow. Okay. Anyway, oh no, Lucas is the Flying Kiwi. So Luke, it's very similar.
Mhm. You Kiwis need to come up with more with names that sound less similar, please.
Yes. Yes.
We're going to start confusing all of you. Same with you folks in Sweden. How many aren't there like multiple Andreases or something?
Yeah,
No?
we have I think we're on number 4 or 5 on
Exactly.
the Andreases in
So,
Sweden.
Sweden and New Zealand. Everyone needs different names. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at least they're appending numbers to them. That helps us a little
Exactly.
bit. Let's see. Dana, would you like to take this one, number 9?
I would love to take number 9. Here we go from Ben. Hello, Jeff, Dana, Nick, and Steph. I have recently been doing some, and I believe it is a beautiful aircraft, 787 routes for Acme Virtual, and I have formulated a question for you. If, say, Ryanair or Acme Harp, as he puts, orders a 737-8 and Acme National, AAL, orders a 319, Airbus 319, I was wondering how they would get the aircraft across the pond. Fly through Greenland and Canada would be inefficient. So how do they transport the aircraft with the Belugas and Dreamlifters? Or do the Airbus and Boeing have factories in other countries? Example, Boeing in the UK. I also have linked my YouTube channel about flying in beautiful New Zealand, YouTube, and that I think you'll probably have that available in the show notes. Jeff, is that correct?
I will.
Thanks for the answers.
Kiwi.
What?
Another Kiwi.
Another Kiwi. Thanks for the answer. Cheers, B. Marling. Well, they ferry the aircraft. If the aircraft doesn't have the range to do the whole flight at once, they indeed will stop it off either in Gander, Iceland, or even up in Ireland if they need to go ahead and get the aircraft across. Also, believe it or not, I had some friends that were in this business, and they were ferrying small aircraft, i.e. what Steph flies, or Cessna 172s, or Piper Warriors, between the continents. And it's the same exact thing. They would stop off and pick up fuel along their planned routes of flights. The other thing that can be done as well is aux fuel tanks can be added, especially with the smaller aircraft. They tend to do that. They'll put an extra couple aux tanks in the airplane cargo compartment or in the back seat to allow the aircraft to go ahead and fly. So it's not uncommon for that to happen, and they generally don't have, although now Boeing has a couple of different manufacturing facilities. One of them happens to be where I was last night in Charleston. That's where they make the 787, or the final assembly in 787. And I know for a fact the Airbus folks are building a final production facility down there in the Mobile, Alabama area. So it's not uncommon to have aircraft built in other countries, and then or flown across the pond per se, or to other continents.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, just delivering an aircraft is no big deal. We used to fly from the UK to well, we still do, I think, to Manila to have our aircraft serviced. So that's just an empty sector, and you just, cough up the gas, fly it half around the world, because the servicing there is less expensive than it would be to have it done locally. So just flying an airplane, over the pond, or even using the Blue Spruce route, which is the northern route where you've got plenty of airfields to stop off at. Well, not plenty, but sufficient. It's no big deal to move aircraft around empty, rather than sticking them inside some enormous, beluga or dreamlifter to do it for you.
And somebody that we all know, or most of us do, Pilot Pip, has a great podcast, Plane Safety Podcast. He was delivering a Hawker 800, I believe, from the UK to Columbus, Ohio, here in the States.
And Kansas City, I think, even.
Or that's right,
even
Wichita.
further. Or Wichita, yeah, somewhere in Kansas.
You're right. And,
Yeah,
and
that's
so
right.
I remember he talked about, how he was able to, basically jump from one place to another place because it didn't have the range to go all the way across the pond. And I think he stopped in Iceland and then Greenland and then somewhere in northern Canada. What province was that?
Probably somewhere like Goose or Gander.
Yeah, Goose or Gander, one of those up there. I think he landed in, and then finally from there, I think he was able to go all the way to Wichita, Kansas. So yeah, I think that the preponderance of aircraft deliveries and ferry flights are performed that way.
Yeah, if we have a fault with our long-range navigation equipment, that's the route we have to take. So any aircraft that's not capable of going ETOPS or not capable of going across the middle of the Atlantic takes that northerly route, because there are airfields around to divert into if required. Not many places in Greenland that I would like to go to. Sonderstrom Fjord is one of the few that are big enough, and that's a runway stuck literally down a field. I think you can more or less only go in there one way, and if you've got to try and land on the other end with a big airplane, it's not advisable. Ouch.
Yeah, I was reading on Wikipedia or something of that airfield and the history of it, and very interesting.
Yeah, they were used during the war a lot. In fact, a lot of them were built at that point to get aircraft across from America to the UK during the war.
Yeah. Well, I have no idea how long we've been going so far, but I think it just feels about the right time for us to do this week's installment of the Plane Tale. And thank you very much for the pronunciation guide, Captain Nick. Did you do that after the fact?
No,
that's was that there the whole time? Oh, darn it. Kosciuszko is the way that you pronounce this. 303 Squadron Kosciuszko. It just doesn't sound right at all.
The Old Pilot's Plane Tales. 303 Squadron Kosciuszko.
The third rising of Germany, which brought Hitler to power, had resulted in a land grab under the auspices of reuniting the traditional German territories and peoples. The British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, returned from the Munich conference and, clambering out of a Lockheed 14, he waved a worthless piece of paper in the air and declared, "I have returned from Germany with peace for our time." Churchill's opinion was typically blunt. In a letter he wrote, "England has been offered a choice between war and shame. She has chosen shame and will get war." On the 31st of March 1939, the United Kingdom, with France, pledged itself to the support of Poland. However, they were far from being ready for war, and when at 0440 on the 1st of September, Germany invaded Poland, there was little they could actually do. However, despite this, on the 3rd of September 1939, the Prime Minister spoke to the country. telling the somber listeners that he had asked Germany to promise to withdraw from Poland.
I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
Outnumbered and outgunned, the Polish Air Force dispersed to secondary airfields and fought bravely. Despite flying the obsolete PZL-11 fighter, they accounted for over 170 German aircraft. However, the ground war wasn't going well, and with the country about to fall, a great number of their pilots managed to escape to France, one of whom was Mirek Wojciechowski. Born in Torun, his father served with the Polish cavalry in one of the last great cavalry battles at Zamość, where the Soviet army, led by Stalin, was driven back. Learning to fly from an open cockpit, their parachute training was something of a trial. Strapping themselves into chutes for the first time, they clambered out onto the wing of the giant Friedrichshafen G3 biplane and simply slid off into the void below. He trained with the famous fighter school at Deblin, and although their equipment wasn't the most modern, their ideas and tactics were right up to date. When on the 1st of September 1939, Poland's border defenses were overrun, he made a quick visit to his mother and younger sister, Marysia, to say his goodbyes. They were hurried, and he never saw them again. 2 weeks later, Poland was on her knees, and although their resistance would cost Germany more in dead and wounded than the combined armies of Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg, France, and England the following year, Mirek was ordered to take his aircraft to Romania. With the help of the Polish ambassador, he was given a false passport and visas to begin a long journey to somewhere where he could continue the fight. He crossed the border into former Yugoslavia, then into Greece, and finally, pretending to be a traveling salesman, into France. Many of his compatriots were assigned to French squadrons, but Mirek opted to go to England, where he joined the RAF Volunteer Reserve. Mirek was 22 when he completed his dangerous and complicated journey to arrive in Blackpool and begin his RAF training. He had already fought a war, crossed 4 countries and the Channel, so that he could have a chance to get back at the Nazis. But the RAF wasn't going to make it easy for him. It must be said that the British command regarded their Slavic allies as inferior pilots to their own, with broken morale and hindered by language difficulties. Except for the language, they were completely wrong. Along with his Polish friends and colleagues, Mirek got to grips with his training, as they all would have done. A lot of things were different. They worked in miles and not kilometers, gallons instead of liters, and the throttles of British aircraft worked in the opposite sense to Polish ones. There were constant speed propellers to deal with, and for some, retracting undercarriage proved an easy area for error. Tactics were different. They had never heard of radar or interceptions controlled from the ground. However, they were keen and able. Training aircraft were the likes of the Hawker Hector, the Fairey Battle, and the Hurricane Mark I. But eventually, the RAF established number 303 Squadron for the Polish Air Force pilots. It was one of 16 Polish squadrons to be formed and was named after the Polish hero general Tadeusz Kościuszko. What the British did not yet realize was that many of the Poles were excellent pilots. Having come through the Polish and French campaigns, some had more combat experience than most of their British comrades, and they employed superior tactics. The squadron trained and trained, but wasn't given operational status, despite the Battle of Britain being 2 months old. And then, On one fateful day, when Mirak was following his section leader, Ludwik Paskovich, on yet another training mission flying Hawker Hurricanes, everything changed. Ludwig spotted a German aircraft. I turned over and dived after him. When turning over, I noticed the black crosses on the wings. Then I aimed at the fuselage and opened fire at about 200 yards, later transferring to the port engine, which I set on fire. When I drew very close, I pressed down under for a new attack, and then I saw another Hurricane attacking and a German bailing out by parachute. On his return to Northolt, Flying Officer Paskovich was reprimanded for breaking discipline. But then the smiles broke out, and they celebrated his and the squadron's first victory. The next day, the squadron was declared fully operational and posted to Number 11 Group. This episode was immortalized in the famous repeat please" scene in the classic 1969 film The Battle of Britain. This was a turning point for the Polish fighter pilots. At last, they had the equipment and the freedom to strike back at the enemy. For the next 6 weeks, 303 Squadron was in the thick of it, but they weren't alone. One of the finest examples of their work was a remarkable feat accomplished by Sergeant Antoni Glowacki of No. 501 Squadron, who on the 24th of August claimed 5 enemy aircraft which were shot down in 3 combat sorties over a single day. He was one of only 3 pilots who achieved the Ace in a Day status during the Battle of Britain, and he recalled the day's actions in his memoirs. Suddenly, a Defiant with a Messerschmitt 109 on its tail flashed across my path between me and the Junkers. I am now firing at the Messerschmitt and see my burst sink into its fuselage and wings. He is hit and goes down closely behind the Defiant, which trails black smoke. Both aircraft crash into the sea below. In the following weeks, No. 303 Squadron achieved a truly astonishing score of 126 enemy planes, as well as 13 probables and 9 damaged, claiming the title of the best scoring unit in the Battle of Britain. One of their extraordinary feats was to shoot down 14 planes plus 4 probables in one sortie over London on the 7th of September, the first day of the Blitz, without a single loss on their side. The scores of 303 Squadron were so impressive that RAF Fighter Command sent up British observers, including Northolt Station Commander Stanley Vincent, who wondered if the Poles might be guilty of inflating the numbers in their post-action reports. The observers, along with the British squadron commanders, found that the scores were not being over-reported, since the Poles were so fiercely competitive with one another and so keenly aware of the scrutiny they were under by the British that they never reported a kill unless it was confirmed by at least one other pilot. Still skeptical, Vincent decided he would find out for himself. On September the 11th, he was following the squadron in his own Hurricane when the Poles encountered a large enemy bomber formation over Horsham, heading for London. Flying above the squadron, Vincent watched as 2 Hurricanes peeled off and dived almost vertically at the German bombers with near suicidal impetus. Startled by the ferocity of the attack, the German pilots broke formation, whereupon the Poles began picking off the scattered bombers one by one. Several times during the combat, the Poles would close almost to a collision point before opening fire on a target. The results were devastating for the Germans. Suddenly, Vincent declared, the air was full of burning aircraft, parachutes, and pieces of disintegrating wings. It was also rapid. It was staggering. An experienced fighter pilot himself, Vincent tried to get into the fight, but every time he started to close on an enemy bomber, a diving pole would cut in between, and I had to pull away to avoid being hit myself. Remaining prudently on the sidelines, Vincent was finally persuaded. When he landed at Northolt that afternoon, he told his intelligence officer, "My God, they are doing it." With observers in tow, number 303 Squadron again notched up 14 confirmed kills in a single day. 9 of the squadron's pilots qualified as aces for shooting down 5 or more enemy aircraft. One of them was Sergeant Josef Frontisek, a Czech who called himself a Pole and preferred to fly with Poles. With a personal score of 17 enemy aircraft, he was arguably the top scorer of the Battle of Britain. 4 of the Polish officers were awarded Distinguished Flying Crosses after the battle, amongst them Flying Officer Witold Ubanowicz of number 303 Squadron, one of the best scorers with 15 kills. There was little doubt that this small concentration of exceptional pilots were capable of extraordinary achievements. 303 Squadron scored nearly 3 times the number of kills as the average British fighter squadron, with only 1/3 of the casualty rate. By the end of the Battle of Britain, this single squadron of men who had fought their way across war-torn Europe to seek refuge and a chance to fight again in Britain had become the most successful fighter squadron in the country. Success in combat can be mainly attributed to the years of extensive and rigorous pre-war training that many of the long-serving Polish veterans had received in their homeland, far more than their younger and less experienced RAF comrades that were being thrown into the battle. Tactics and skill also played a role. On one occasion, number 303's Sergeant Stanislaw Kadabin resorted to extreme tactics to bring down a German fighter. Following a prolonged air battle, Kadabin was chasing a German fighter at treetop level. As he closed in on the tail of the German fighter, he realized that his Hurricane had run out of ammunition. Rather than turning back to base, he closed the distance and climbed just above the German aircraft. The German pilot, shocked to see the underside of a Hurricane within arm's reach of his cockpit, instinctively dived to avoid a collision and crashed into the ground. The Polish pilots were brave and reckless, but skilled, and they went on to fight magnificently throughout the war. On the 25th of April 1945, number 303 Squadron made its last wartime operational sortie, escorting 2 Avro Lancasters to Berchtesgaden on a raid. Many pilots had been decorated, many had died. Our friend Mirek had found both his older sister, Janka, and a wife in England, so he stayed and flew with the RAF for many years after the war. Sadly, he died in an accident when flying out of Odium, not far from me, in 1956. What happened to some of those other wonderful Polish pilots is a source of pain for many of us who know the story. Some decided, or in some cases were forced, to return to Poland, by then under Soviet occupation. This often had very serious consequences. The communist regime, distrustful towards ex-servicemen of the Polish armed forces in the West, barred them from flying in the Polish Air Force and in numerous cases imprisoned them on trumped-up charges of espionage. One of the most dramatic cases was that of Wing Commander Stanislaw Skalski, the top Polish scorer of the entire war, who spent 8 years in prison after initially being sentenced to death. It was not until Stalin's death in 1953 that most of the airmen were able to regain their ranks and serve in the Polish Air Force. For all that had happened both before and after the war, there was no doubting the Polish pilot's contribution to Britain during its darkest hours. Air Chief Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding, who led Fighter Command during the Battle of Britain, would later write
Had it not been for the magnificent material contributed by the Polish squadrons and their unsurpassed gallantry, I hesitate to say that the outcome of the battle would have been the same. Music by Sibirskaya Vichon.
I'd say excellent pronunciation, Captain Nick.
Look, I'm just going to put it out there and say, look, if there's anyone out there of Polish extraction who actually knows how to speak the language, I apologize. I did my best, but getting my tongue around any of those names was just a nightmare. I'm sorry. I did my best. I did, in fact, listen to every single one on the internet there with real Polish people pronouncing them, but I still don't think I got any of them right.
Well, for those of us who don't speak any Polish, sounded great.
Sounded good to me, and I'm Polak.
Oh, there you go. Well done.
No,
I mean, I don't think I certainly actually didn't really understand just what a fantastic contribution that those 19 squadrons, and particularly 303 Squadron, made during the Battle of Britain. Those guys were brilliant. Now, they did have, as I mentioned, a very small concentration of fantastically trained and clever people. So it's a good job that Dowding eventually allowed them to, actually become operational. And they achieved all those scores despite the fact that they didn't participate in the first 2 months of the Battle of Britain. So, when they compared those absolute numbers against other squadrons, they didn't even have a chance in the first 2 months to kill anything. So I think they did brilliantly. They're great.
They did. And you're wondering if we had many polls listening to the show, and I'm not sure what the time frame is on this, but I'm looking at a distribution of downloads over time, whatever that time is. Again, I don't know, but there are 317 downloads from Poland.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right.
Might be the same person, though.
Well, it wasn't a 300 and that's not right. They must have downloaded one show twice.
Yeah. Maybe there's 2 of them, and they only listen to half of them. I don't know.
Well, if it all stops from Poland, you'll know why.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, just stand by for 317 angry emails about your pronunciation of Polish.
Exactly.
I didn't even, honestly, I find that Second World War is I'm a history. I wouldn't say a expert, but I am a history buff of Second World War, and I didn't realize Poland had an air force. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, and what's more, they did a pretty good job of against the Luftwaffe, considering they were flying quite outmoded aircraft at the time. They shot down 170 Luftwaffe aircraft in those first couple of weeks of the invasion of Poland.
Wow. Pretty darn good pilots, I'd say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Let's see. Well, thank you again, Captain Nick, for all the hard work you put in those. That's awesome.
Well, no, that was a joy, that one. I enjoyed that. Oh, there was a name, I think, associated with that. Did I mention it? Who had suggested that? Oh,
I
damn.
don't see it in your note here in Evernote, so I can't help you.
Okay. In that case, my apologies. It was suggested to me by somebody, and I haven't made a note of it. But I will certainly make a point of putting that in the notes and thanking whoever it was on the next show, perhaps.
All right. It was me, actually.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
No, it wasn't me. I can't take credit for it.
If I can find it before the end of the show, I'll let you know.
Okay. Let's see. Tony wrote in, and he said, this article might appeal to Captain Nick. Now, I'm not going to say where this is from, and we're not going to read anything verbatim in this, but it's, and we did cover this, by the way, on an earlier show. Remember the person down in, was it Australia?
Down under, yeah.
Down under, yeah. That a guy bought an airplane, but it didn't have wings, and he rigged up a gas tank a jerry can and put it inside the passenger compartment of this very small general aviation single engine airplane, and then a line going to the engine so you could actually run the engine with the propeller. And he was taxiing it around town and parked in the local pub's parking lot. And apparently the local
not allowed.
police, they didn't. They actually, the article talks about the fact that the local police were kind of half laughing about it, but then on the other hand thinking, wow, you're driving this thing around, it has a propeller, in the open, that can't be safe. And Mark McKenzie, the local police sergeant, said, I'm confident that he will be charged with something soon. Apparently.
Yeah, that's right. Once we work out what it is. I love it.
Well, it's like the stories I've heard of people losing their driver's licenses for driving under the influence or while intoxicated, and then same person gets pulled over again for driving their lawnmower, like ride-on lawnmower, down to the pub or bar or something.
Yeah,
I've heard of these stories before too. This one's more.
Well, apparently this guy was quite a character. Not something that they didn't expect to see from this guy, apparently. Anyway, so thanks, Tony. But I don't remember what show it was. But do you remember talking about this in an earlier show?
A ways
I
back.
do, yeah. 5,000 Australian dollars plus court and towage costs. So that was an expensive trip down the pub.
And we need to tell you that he doesn't have a pilot license, but apparently he wasn't really flying it. So I guess, do you really need one? I don't know.
No. And it doesn't have wings. So it's not really an airplane.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it really an airplane? No. Good point. All right. James sent us a voice message via SpeakPipe. If you want to send us some audio feedback, you can do it several different ways. You can record something on your smartphone's recording app and then attach it to an email and send it to us, or you can do as James did and head over to the airlinepilotguide.com site and click on the link to go to SpeakPipe, and then you can record your audio that way. And so let's take a listen.
Hi, Captain Jeff and the crew. James Devoy here, the Scottish pilot currently residing in Atlanta. Thanks for reading out my feedback last week. My apologies for the grammar. I mistakenly posted the draft version. I have been a long-time listener. I travel a lot long haul, both Acme and Acme Red. Maybe Captain Nick has been my driver on occasions. Listening to APG is a great way to close the eyes and pass a few hours. Great show. Thanks, guys. I couldn't listen live last week, but on the replay, I noticed a few questions in the chat room around my comments, and I wanted to clarify them. Firstly, Poznan. Poznan is a major Polish city exactly halfway between Berlin and Warsaw. It's actually a well-known city to any European Cirrus pilots, as it is where their European training and centre of excellence is based. Its main airport and the Cirrus base is Warszawa. Warszawa, when spelt, it looked like L-A-W-I-C-A. It's serviced by a number of airlines, including Ryanair and Lufthansa. Highly recommended for a city break. Great architecture, people, and Polish beer. Secondly, there were some comments made around QNH and QFE. People were discussing them being military terms. Not being military myself, I cannot comment, but in the UK, they are part of the private pilot syllabus. QNH, its origins are debatable, but I was taught it stands for Query Nautical Height. It's the altitude above mean sea level. QFE, I was taught, stands for Query Field Elevation. QFE is therefore the actual elevation above the aerodrome. In the UK, when taking off or landing, the ATIS or tower will give you the QFE. Setting your altimeter to this will give you your exact elevation above the middle of the longest runway at the field. So if the field is at 521 feet and the pattern or circuit height is 1,000 feet, on QNH, your altimeter will therefore show 1,521 feet when you actually reach the pattern or circuit altitude. However, in the UK, it will read 1,000 feet when you reach your circuit height or elevation. The QFE will read 1,000 feet. Of course, it's not a mental calculation, But on QNH, as you descend towards the runway, you have to continually make that mental calculation. How high am I above the actual ground? On QFE, it's always at the correct height. You touch down at 0 feet. One less thing to concern yourself about during the landing phase. Captain Jeff, I hope my Glaswegian Scottish accent wasn't too thick and all was understood. Safe flying and blue skies to all.
I understood every single word, James. Thank you very much. And we were listening to him pronounce all these Polish words. Nick, this is the guy you needed to contact.
Why, do you think all those Poles were actually Scots in disguise?
May have been. All right.
Oh, by the way, I just thought I'd point out that, the Q codes were used by radio operators, and they were adopted by the military. Queen's field elevation or query field elevation or whatever you do, it's just a mnemonic to help you remember that QFE is field elevation. It's not actually what FE means. That's a kind of a random code that. So, for example, QNE, which doesn't make me think of anything to do with altimeters, is the pressure setting for international standard atmosphere, which would be 1013 for us Brits and 2932 or something for you guys.
92.
2992.
There you go. For you guys. I just pull a knob and it says standard, so I don't need to worry.
Excellent. So what was he saying? Cree, like for the Q? Or is that just the way the Scots say Q?
Well, it sounded like query.
Query. Okay, that makes sense.
But I mean, what all he's been taught is that's a way to remember by using that mnemonic that QFE is the one you set when you want to land at the runway and have your altimeter read 0.
I really thought for sure that FE actually did stand for field elevation, but
no,
interesting.
No, it doesn't.
I like the one NH nautical height. It makes it easier to remember that. That's cool. All right. Excellent. So thanks, James, for schooling us on that. And Nick, did you remember who it was that suggested that plane tail?
Yes, I did. Daniel R. Now, I don't know what the R stands for, and it was some time ago. But thank you, Daniel, for that suggestion. Very kind of you. And
a smart man. He doesn't want to reveal his actual last name because...
No, I don't blame him.
We don't blame you at all. All right. Ivor sent this in to us from iomtoday.co.im. What is that? Is that Ireland? I don't know what I.im is. Anyway.
Isle of Man.
Isle of Man.
Isle of Man, Ronald's Way. Yes, I was just catching up there. It's an island just north of Wales.
Okay.
I knew that.
Okay. Well, let's see. A report into the incident that led to operator Van Air Europe losing its route licenses has blamed poor crew training and management shortcomings. The flight had left Ronaldsway for Belfast on February 23rd last year, the day Storm Doris hit the island in Northern Ireland. It had to turn back and return to the island, landing on runway 26 at 9:27 a.m. While CityWing operated as a ticket agent, the aircraft, a LET-L 410, was owned by Van Air Europe, registered in the Czech Republic. The plane had 2 crew and 3 passengers on board. The report by the UK's Air Accidents Investigation Branch, published last month, said the prime causal factor in this serious incident was the decision to land with a maximum crosswind component of 40 knots, which is approximately twice the maximum demonstrated certification of 19.4.
Oh my God.
That's
even more than that, twice.
Unbelievable.
Analysis of the cockpit voice recorder concluded that the crew didn't discuss the evolving threat, which the AAIB says indicated a lack of training of crew resource management, in particular threat management. The company operation manual also appeared to lack clear guidance in respect to problem solving and decision making. This became further obvious as the landing approach was unstable, but the crew doesn't discuss this as would be normal standard operational procedure. The aircraft also exceeded the limiting airspeed for flight with gear down and flaps extended. However, this wasn't corrected either. Finally, the crew began taxiing in a wind which was stronger than wind which blew a similar aircraft onto its wingtip at Isle of Man in 2007, and which exceeded the ground operation limit introduced after the 2007 accident. The AAIB also stated that insufficient weather information did not allow the crew to assess the storm's path. The operational flight plan did not account for the correct level of contingency fuel, and this meant the crew did not allow for a realistic alternate routing. The plane was reported by witnesses as unstable and tilting to the left, bringing the wingtip close to the runway before it touched down. The aircraft was then seen by eyewitnesses from the airport's fire service, which had been placed on standby, that after about traveling along the runway for about 20 meters, the plane rolled again and the wing came within 1 meter of the runway. And this is a high wing airplane, by the way.
Yeah, it's not like the wing is exceptionally close to the ground. It has to tilt quite a bit.
Yeah. So if you'll remember, they pulled the operating license from this airline after this incident, and now we're seeing why they did that. Anyway, interesting. Thank you, Ivor. Anything else we want to say about that?
I love the pilot says he had no concern that the wingtip or the propeller might have been close to the ground. Perhaps he should have had.
Wasn't worried about it at all.
No, everything's fine.
Got 2 of them.
Yeah, don't understand the problem.
Yeah. Dirk writes, Captain Jeff and Steph, I'm a retired anesthesiologist and always flew privately in my spare time. Recently, I was recruited to join a Part 135 charter operation and am now flying their citations. It was always a dream of mine to fly jets, but never thought I would be able to do so until recently. I am having the time of my life and wanted to let Steph know that there is hope for us doctors who love to fly and someday want to fly really nice airplanes.
Double yay.
The only problem is he keeps putting his co-pilot to sleep.
Well, hazard of prior occupation.
Yeah. Captain Jeff, when you're in Omaha, I'd love to meet up for coffee, beer, lunch, dinner. Wow, that's a lot. Let me know. I have some local knowledge. And as of now, I have March 29th off. Oh, he obviously went to Where's Captain Jeff or Find Jeff or whatever the link is on the website where I post my schedule. And it looks like later this month, I have a layover again in Omaha. So Dirk, if you're listening, yeah, I'd love to. I'll get in touch with you and we'll do some coffee / beer / lunch / dinner. Probably not all of that.
Time.
Yeah, all at the same time. So Steph, you can, after you retire from doing your doctor stuff, you can fly citation jets or something like that.
Sounds nice. Looking forward to that day. So
now Dirk's up in Lincoln. I don't know. I guess that's not too far from Omaha, but they are different cities. They can just fly a citation down.
Exactly. He's got means to travel. So
yeah. Stephen writes, Doctor, Captain, and Captain. Reminds me of that Spies Like Us little sound where they go, Doctor. It's amazing how important attitude and professionalism can impact the customer service experience. This is a follow-up to the unfortunate incident that Captain Dana reported about in episode 309 when a cabin cleaner exhibited extremely unprofessional behavior and a bad attitude. My wife and I had our own experience recently, but in a very different way. After Acme rebooked us at no charge to travel a day early in February due to winter weather from Boston, Captain Nick's favorite, to Amsterdam, when we boarded the aircraft, I was very surprised to find my overhead bin in the Acme 1 cabin already full. Fortunately, I was able to find overhead space on the other side of the aircraft. Later, I found out why the bin was full. In the middle of the overnight flight, I was awakened when something fell on me. I looked up and found a flight attendant picking up the candy bar he had dropped on me when retrieving it from his bags that he had placed in my overhead bin. Suffice it to say, I was shocked at this attendant's lack of professionalism, something far outside what I've come to expect from Acme. In contrast, on an Acme flight last year, we had the pleasure of having Roberta, a Boston-based Acme flight attendant, as our purser. Roberta has been an Acme employee for more than 50 years. That's 50, and still going strong. I asked her if she knew my close friend and Cessna 172 partner, who had been a Boeing 767 captain. Sorry again, Captain Nick, before he retired from Acme over 15 years ago. She had flown with him many times on international flights, and we tearfully agreed it had been a blessing to have him in our lives. He unfortunately went to pilot heaven a couple of years ago. Like all of you, Captain Roger had the right stuff when it came to flying skills, professionalism, and customer service. One final note. If you're interested in knowing what air traffic is above and around you, for less than $100, you can install a FlightAware ADS-B receiver at your home or wherever and see everything above you in real time. I live in Maine on Peaks Island, 4 miles from PWM. Hi, Micah. And am directly under the harbor visual approach to runway 29. Again, that's at Portland, Maine. The more interesting thing for me is that we are also under the hundreds of aircraft that go to and from Europe every day on the North Atlantic track system. It's fascinating to see the airlines that are above me and where they are from, screenshot attached. When you install the simple receiver and provide an internet feed to FlightAware, they also give you one of their premium accounts for free. AvGeeks Explore. Thanks for all you do. Keep up all the great content and the blue side up. Another Maine man, Stephen Ward. Very cool. So to get back to the first part of your feedback regarding the experience you had with the flight attendant and the bags and dropping the candy bar and that kind of thing, I wasn't quite sure, what you were upset about. If it was because he put his bags in an overhead bin in the passenger compartment, or maybe because it was the first class, business class area, where maybe that was his beef. I'm sure it wasn't the fact that he dropped the candy bar, unless, of course, the
No.
flight attendant didn't apologize or whatever. But I can see, the flight attendants don't really have anywhere to put their bags except the overhead bins, but I don't think that that's policy for them to use the business first class area of the jet. So I could understand being a little flummoxed about that.
Yeah, I think it was just where the items were placed was what he was.
Okay.
That's what I took from it anyway. But
yeah, when I first read that and I put that comment in there, I didn't realize that it was in that business first class section. But that makes sense now. And yeah, it's always cool to know people like Captain Roger, who has gone on to pilot heaven. Apparently he was a good guy. Sounds like a lot of people knew him and loved him.
Where's pilot hell?
I don't know.
I'm just curious.
Wherever it is, I'm going there.
Yeah, well,
I'd say we all may find out at some point.
Yeah, I want to make sure I got the Mr. Approach plates for that one.
Go around.
Yes, you can always go around.
It's a continuous, unending go around.
That's purgatory, actually.
And then you never get to land. Oh, that would be awful.
And there's always a queue in front of the toilets.
And you have to pay full price for everything.
Ah,
yeah, that would be hell for pilots.
No, you actually have to buy. You actually have to buy a newspaper.
Oh wow, that would be quite frustrating. Yeah, there's an old joke that if you can't find a free newspaper, on board the airplane when all the passengers leave, then if you go and actually purchase a newspaper, it's one of those things where you try to do it so that no other pilot sees you, or actually anybody sees you, because you don't want to give the wrong impression. Let's see, the FlightAware thing, that's pretty cool. The ADS-B receiver, as you said, can be had for less than $100, and then
they're even cheaper than that.
Yeah, you can get them like what are they called? Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, a little Raspberry Pi and a little thumb transfer.
$30-40.
I've got a friend just a few miles away who does this, and he's pretty good at amateur radio, and he's made a really good aerial for his little receiver, and he can pick up the traffic going into Paris, for heaven's sake. Wow. And I think he gets a platinum. Free platinum service with FlightAware because he feeds into their information thing.
Very cool. I didn't know they were that cheap. So
yeah. So get one today and get your free premium account from FlightAware. Let's see. Michael writes NTSB. Oh, wait a minute. I need to look at my own notes. A little bit of tidying up to do here, a little bit of vacuuming. Let's see. Michael writes, NTSB investigators used a quadcopter to document what a bus driver would have seen in the moments before a fatal crash in Alabama, the agency's first deployment of a drone at night. The mission was the first since the safety agency secured FAA authorization to fly a drone at night, and was noted in a March 15th press release from the safety agency, which dispatched investigators to Alabama to the scene of an accident that claimed the life of a bus driver, Harry Caligone. I don't know how you pronounce that. What would you say? Caligone?
Sure.
Caligon?
Caligone?
Caligone?
Anyway,
I've gone
Harry
out on a
C.
limb too many times on this show.
Yeah.
You're now the resident expert name pronouncer.
Well, I don't think it's a Polish name.
Caligone.
Yeah. The only person to die when the bus was carrying a high school band from Florida to Texas, which veered off Interstate 10 and into a ravine in the pre-dawn hours of March 13th. Bill English, a senior NTSB investigator who has led the agency's implementation of unmanned aircraft as an accident investigation tool, said in an email exchange that the night flights were conducted to replicate human vision as closely as possible using the camera of a DJI Phantom 4 Pro, an exercise known as a sight distance evaluation. Anyway, so it goes on to talk a little bit more about how they use the drone and such, and pretty interesting. So that was from AOPA.org, and we'll have the rest of that article, the links in the show notes if you want to read up on the rest of that story. So, hey, good use of a drone, I'd say.
Yep.
Liz sent this one in. Can science beat jet lag? Airlines seek help for 19-hour flights. Ugh. Airlines are working with scientists to find ways to limit body clock breakdown on the 17-hour flight. A wave of ultra-long flights that will let you or get you halfway around the world in one hop is pushing airlines to deal with the one extra you can't escape: relentless insomnia, debilitating fatigue, and tormented bowels.
Yeah.
Sorry. Also known as jet lag. Qantas Airways Limited, which will start nonstop service between Australia and Europe this month, is working with scientists in Sydney to find ways to limit body clock breakdown on the 17-hour flight. They've tried to make the color and intensity of the jet's interior lights mimic dawn and dusk. Cabin temperatures and special meals aim to put passengers to sleep or keep them awake, depending on the time at the destination. Somebody told me also they were starting to play some of my earlier episodes of the Airline Pilot Guy on the overhead speakers to get people to sleep at that point of the flight.
Well, that's an excellent suggestion.
Problem is they can't wake them up.
No. Just asleep for 19 hours. Get off the plane. It's time to get.
The Perth-London route is the latest endurance test as new aircraft technology stretch the time a plane can stay profitably in the air. Delivery of a new Airbus model later this year will allow Singapore Airlines to resume its 19-hour marathon from Singapore to New York, an epic stress test for mind and body. Key to the problem is circadian disruption, messing with the internal body clock that regulates everything from brainwave activity to hormone production and cell regeneration. And so it goes on to talk about the fact that the main cue for resetting that circadian clock is light. And this is interesting. I didn't know this. There's a baked-in biological catch. The body clock, can only reset by about 90 minutes a day, even in the right conditions. So,
yeah, I've always used an hour a day, but apparently if you obviously if you can do it right, you can move it much faster than that. But
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably true for the vast majority of people. I think there's a lot of variability there as well. So, some people are much more susceptible to jet lag and others are less so. But
That's why I'm not allowed to fly past the Rocky Mountains westbound and past the Atlantic seaboard eastbound.
Yeah. I like the shorter segments as well. And I've done, I have experience doing those I have done some super long haul as well in in my Air Force days, but just not for me. The last sentence here is pretty good. To create that natural light on an aircraft traveling many thousands of feet in the air at a very fast speed requires a lot of science.
Windows?
Yeah, windows. Ooh, good idea.
LEDs.
LEDs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of science.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Liz, for sending that in. And you were talking about the photograph of the airport where there were some airliners parked, and we were tasked with identifying it. And we had all kinds of guesses. But Ray Williams, my neighbor to the north in Alpharetta, seems to think that he knows what airplane or airport that was. He thinks it's Dallas Fort Worth International.
I think some others had guessed that too during the show, but
okay.
I guess I just haven't been there.
I don't remember seeing that terminal. I don't, the terminals that I go to look different than that. So I guess the international terminal is different.
Doesn't look like Dallas to me either. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But we very rarely get on the west side of the airport. So
that's true.
That's where the international terminal is.
Good point. Good point. Okay. Have I gone through our entire list in this feedback folder?
Yes.
Unless you've hidden some.
You did.
I have not. Best I can tell, we've been going for about 2.5 hours, maybe a little bit more. So what do you say we just stop at this point?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's do the closing stuff. The airlinepilotguy.com website is where you go to find out more about the show, about the crew, about the community, and more. Again, that's airlinepilotguy.com. We also have apps for your smartphone, your tablet, for both the Android platform and the iOS Apple platforms. And you can look for the Android stuff at the Google Play Store, and of course the Apple at the Apple App Store, and social media.
So I'll cover Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, you can find us at APG Crew. And on Facebook, that's facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. All kinds of good social media stuff happening there. So join us. And I'll toss it over to Hillel.
Hillel, come on out. You need to do the segment here.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan meetups and events. To get into the Slack team, please send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @HI11E1, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel @HI11E1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel. Now go back to wherever you were hiding. And I guess until the next time we meet, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care. God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Hasta la vista,
baby.
Baby. What are you laughing about, Steph?
Well, at first I was laughing because Dana knocked his microphone over right before we tried to.
Yeah, and probably more the expression on my face.
Yeah, that too. It was pretty good. He went, oh.
Yeah.
He knew it was making noise like right in that moment. So it was just funny.
Man.
It's the little things that I laugh about,
Again, I so apologize for the technical snafu at the beginning of the show. It's just like, oh, come on.
Well, I don't think you even worked out what it was, did you, Jeff?
No, I don't know what's
turning off.
Mystery volume control problems.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll try to figure it out. See what happened. But,
well, they've got rid of it now, so I shouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Ooh, I gotta stop my recorder now before I record.
Oh yeah.
40 hours worth of nothing.
Don't do that.
I'm
yeah,
done
so
too.
I looked at this and on my Adobe Audition, which I use for recording. It looks like I don't know why, started about the 1 hour point. But I mean, I think I'm hoping that's the beginning of the show. And then it looks like we ended around according to this, about 3:45. So that would be about a 2-hour, 45-minute. Give or
pretty
take a
pretty good.
10
Yeah.
Given everything that
So long as your audio is fine, as I'm sure it probably will be.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me in my ears that it's okay, but we'll see, I guess.
Oh, was that 316 we just did?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Wow.
it is. So Dana, you're gonna. So you don't really know what you're doing yet, do you?
On what? Oh, for tomorrow?
Your trip.
Yeah, well, Mr. Carroll's, the lovely Mike sent me a copy of the internal memo that was around the OCC, and this guy that was the sector manager was just being a best word I can use is douche nozzle. Yeah. So,
wow. Still live, by the way.
I see that.
Okay.
That's why I didn't use the swear word.
Uh-huh.
I see it. It says LIVE with orange around it. Yes, I'm well aware of it.
Making sure. Just HR has to.
Oh, that doesn't mean live?
Your emphasis is
live.
on the wrong syllable.
So, anyways, he after 3 conversations and that fact that this memo is out there that the ILS system here in Providence is unreliable when it had snow on it. It should not have happened the way it did, and now we're pretty much probably stranded up here for a while. I don't know. It depends on how bad the weather is tomorrow, but they're predicting 5 to 8 inches overnight here, so we'll see what happens.
Is there quite a bit already looking out the window there?
No, it's barely, the concrete's still bare, so it's only been a very light flurry most of the evening. As a matter of fact, when it was snowing heaviest, I tried to turn the computer and pointed out the window a little bit to see if anybody could see the snow, but it was just too light still to even really register.
Huh. Well, I should have shown you what it was like in Louisville. It sounds like Louisville got more snow than you're getting so far, at least.
Yeah, well, I just shouldn't even be here right now.
Well, enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, well,
We're all where we're supposed to be at any given moment in time, right?
Wow,
that's
words
right.
of wisdom.
Very deep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think Dana agrees.
Am I really supposed to be here then?
No.
Yes, you are.
Oh.
No.
Yeah. Oh, amazed.
You're the exception.
I'm
Yes,
supposed to be in
Jennifer
bed, I
said-
thought.
Yeah, you need to be in bed, but that's still probably within the general geographic location of where you are right now.
I know my wife's puking her guts up, so.
Oh, no.
Yep.
I'll send our best wishes
Condole.
to.
Yes.
I shall. I've only heard her hurl 2 or 3 times.
Oh, that's not good at all.
No.
No.
2 or 3 times.
That's a lot.
No,
That's 2 or 3
get
times
off-
more than
Get
anyone
off
wants
this
to.
thing and
Go
go and help
take
your
care.
wife.
She'll be hopefully asleep again now. So,
Yikes.
yeah.
Oh, man.
Jen Niffer thinks she's supposed to be in Hawaii. Yeah.
Oh, she also said that somebody needs to send someone to dust off the ILS.
Yeah. Oh, like feather duster, just.
Yeah.
Big broom. What are you doing? They're dusting off the ILS so the airplanes can land.
Yeah, it's a little absurd to me.
Yeah. Wow. I can't wait to hear the rest of that story.
Stay tuned for
Yes,
APG
me too. We'll hear
317
next
sometime
week.
next week for the conclusion of Dana's adventure
Saga.
in Providence. Saga in Providence.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for hanging in there with us again. And we're going to go ahead and shut down the feed or the stream. And not sure when we're going to do this next week, but we'll let you know as soon as we know. And
Indeed.
bye-bye.
Bye, folks. Cheers, bye.
See ya.